Immediately, I've got to say that I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I am so annoyed that it ended where it did. Somehow it managed to top The Legend of Ruby Sunday in terms of setting up the finale, but let's just hope that the reality war is better than Empire of Death. Let's talk about how absolutely phenomenal Wishworld was as a concept. It feels like Russell has taken quite a lot of notes from Big Finish stories here. The Sixth Doctor story, Purity Unleashed, and that whole Waterworld arc deals with a very similar concept, and even has Ruth Madeley and Bonnie Langford in it. And of course, The Natural History of Fear in the Eighth Doctor Adventures is all about a society where you can't ask questions. People are stuck in the norms of the 1950s, the world that is perfect according to Conrad, one where men go out to work, women have children, then settle down, gay people don't exist, and the disabled are forgotten. The detail of his book looking like the first edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was great, though I.M. Foreman being the author is quite interesting, and I do hope that they do something with that. Conrad's return is of course nice, but I wish that we got more of this in Lucky Day, more of what the perfect world is for him and what his motivations truly were. Earlier it just seemed to be taking down Unit, not creating his own version of reality, but I'll get onto that later. I think one thing we have to give this story is some leeway. This isn't a story we can judge on its own, because it's not a story on its own. It's the first part of a two-part finale, so it's gonna be majority setup. If Bad Wolf just ended with no follow-up to the cliffhanger, nobody would be happy now, would they? So the Rani, with the help from Mrs. Flood, who I'm going to call Mrs. Flood just so we can differentiate, and Conrad has created the perfect staging ground to foster doubt, because doubt breaks open the cracks in reality, and the doubt of a Time Lord can cause world-shattering cracks. I think this world they've crafted is a wonderful concept, what someone would do if they had a baby that can grant wishes, as that always ends up having world-changing consequences. People say they just change minor things, but at the end of the day, power does corrupt. The Doctor and Belinda being a married couple will never sit right with me. Watching them kiss is like watching Colin and Nicola kissing in the Air Zone solution. It just feels like watching your parents kiss, and it always feels really weird. That brings me to the surprise appearance of Rogue, who I still have little to no feeling for whatsoever. You know him for like 5 minutes, lad. How did you fall in love? He's not like Captain Jack with his 50th century pheromones that make everyone attracted to him. I thought that Rogue would be relegated to a mid-season story if he were to come back, not a finale. I just don't find him finale-worthy, unlike the biggest reveal of the story, which is, of course, Omega, who has some of his lines taken from Big Finish, making this the first time Big Finish has contributed to a Doctor Who story. Also, I've got to say that Hell Dimension on the TV looked awful, so I really hope that's not where Omega is just sitting. Omega returning. I honestly don't know how I feel on it. Seeing how Russell massively messed up the return of Sutekh, I just hope that he can do Omega justice. The thing is with Omega is that he's a more well-known character than the Rani, or even really Sutekh. He appears in more popular stories, especially an anniversary story. He's mentioned in one of the most popular, with Remembrance of the Daleks, and is a much more prominent character in the grand scheme of things. So why would the Rani want to bring him, of all people, back? Initially, I thought this was to be one of her experiments, this time in doubt, because it seemed to be that way at first. But no, it's her trying to bring back Omega from his prison in the antimatter universe. Why? Well, we'll find out, I guess. In his reveal, Conrad calls him something like the father of the Time Lords, and he may well be. It's known that Rassilon may have lied about creating the Time Lords and just usurped his position. Did he push Omega? Did Omega fall? Well, the Rani seems to think that he was pushed instead. I'm quite glad that the reveal wasn't the Master showing up, as it was entirely unneeded. We don't need to see him and the Rani both on screen together again, as they serve entirely different purposes, though I do think that Mrs. Flood would have been the perfect character to play off against them, as she's just very unique. Speaking of Mrs. Flood, her taking the role of Chief of Police or Police and Crime Commissioner is just perfect. She very easily slips into that role and fits it really well, but it does make me theorise of how this is all going to be wrapped up. How is this all going to be stopped? Of course, the main team are going to play a big part in that, in taking down the Rani and Omega, but I think that Mrs. Flood and Conrad may play a part too. Mrs. Flood surely doesn't like playing second fiddle to herself, and Conrad definitely seems unhappy with his place in the world, even though it's a world that he created, but who knows. Next week, my reaction will be a lot later, as I will be watching it in the cinema, which I am quite excited for. There will also be a preview for The War Between the Land and the Sea, so that'll be very fun. But my only hope going into it is they do something with the big bone beasts, which are just so faction paradox coded and need to be explored. There'll be no History of tomorrow, so unfortunately I am ending the streak of 2 videos a week since before the robot revolution, I think. I've just had a lot on, so couldn't get round to it, but with such big reveals, of course I'll be doing 2 videos on the Rani and Omega, so stay tuned for those. But, as always, thanks for watching.